women. It was really the combination of the industrialized society, which shifted the roles that defined male roles and female roles. I mean, I remember my mother, who grew up in Egypt before technology, and as a growing boy, she says, you know, the role of a housewife now is much easier. Okay, because when I was a kid, if you wanted to have chicken for dinner, you'd have to go and catch the chicken, slaughter it, you know, and it was a whole long, tedious task. And now, you know, she can go and buy a clean chicken. We have vacuum cleaners, we have dishwashers, we have washing machines. And women have become educated, and so this shift in roles has really impacted societies, both in the West and in the traditional Muslim world, and the non-Muslim world. In the Orient, in China, and Japan, these roles are even very, very entrenched. Latin America. These are cultural, historical things. And now, as women are getting educated, they don't want to do these things anymore. And today, if you go to Iran, you go to the Gulf, 2/3 of the university population is women. So there's no doubt in my mind that within another half a generation, you'll see massive shifts in the Muslim world. Now, in the meantime, we have to do certain things, and we have done a number of projects. Two that are distinct. One is we've done a project to educate imams in Afghanistan, because many of you, well, Muslims may know this, but many of Muslims may not, is that most of the imams who give the Friday sermons are not very educated in our traditional cultures. So what we did was we did a project where we got a well-known scholar in Afghanistan to write a series of sermons on the rights of women, what the Quran says and what the Prophet said about women, educating women and so forth, which was very successful. In fact, the people who were helping us test this project, once was looking at it in one of the mosques. He saw this person feeling very, very sad. And he says, can I help you? He says, no one can help me. I have denied my daughter an education. I've consumed her dowry. The dowry is the property of the girl, not the property of the parents. It's too late for me now. Why didn't they tell me this earlier? It's a result of the sermons that were given. So in specific underground projects like this, we are trying to make a difference. The other one is the terrible practice of what is called female circumcision, or FGM, as they call it, female genital cutting, or FGC, terrible things. It's an African practice, not part of Islam at all. It's not a practice in the Arabian Peninsula, but very much practiced in Egypt, for example, and in African countries, who think it is a religious requirement. Even educated Muslim women in Egypt think it's a religious requirement. So we have done a project also to eliminate them. We did a test case in a village in Giza, where we looked at not only the religious aspect, but the economic aspect of it, because the people who do these things, that's their livelihood. So we gave them a different livelihood, and they're very happy by this change. So we have to work with both the religious factor, but also the economic factor to effect a change. So it's by doing things like this and having this network that we have pretty much annual conferences like the MLT conference of young leaders like yourself, which we have convened. But the One on Women is a very, very exciting group of women internationally who are doing many, many things in Yemen, in Saudi Arabia, and all over the world.
I'm going to do just a couple of rapid-fire questions here. A lot of these questions on separate topics have kind of bunched themselves up, and I do want to get to our final community leader. But just a couple of opportunity for you to just air some things, right? Some misperceptions. So number one, let's just get this over with as fast as possible. Will you please, so that everybody in the audience can hear it, condemn Hamas and its actions long.
Yes. I condemn Hamas as acts of terrorism.
Number two, thank you. Will you state your acceptance of Israel's right to exist?
Absolutely. I've always said that Israel has a right to exist. And more than that, the Arab countries have all accepted the right of Israel to exist.
And then one question I want to ask, obviously there's a lot of questions about the Park 51 Center and the issue of the Ground Zero Mosque, and we can talk about that all night, and I have no interest in doing so. But I do want to ask something about that situation. One, and it sort of dovetail on the reality that you've had kind of a public break with the organizers of the project. The question that I want to ask is, as a person who has built a career around conflict resolution, what did you do wrong in the situation around the Park 51 controversy? Well, how did you fail?
I don't think failure is the right term. I think what happened was the project became politicized.
But surely you must have known that that would happen.
Look, the story became public in December of 2009. Right. Front page in the New York Times.
Nobody cared.
Nobody cared. It wasn't until May of 2010 all of a sudden became a story. So the midterm elections, Obama being the son of a Muslim, all of that, that confluence of events, made us be used as a wedge issue for the midterm elections. That part I didn't expect. In a country that, after 45 years of living in this country, I've never been in a country where separation of church and state was so, a line so severe. I never thought that we would become used as a part of the political election process.
You were surprised by that?
That part I was surprised by. That part I was surprised by. And everyone mentioned, Mayor Bloomberg said this thing is not going to last beyond November 3rd. Not my words. And it stopped. We waited for that.
Well, we got another election coming up, so.
I haven't seen. But that's the thing. But I think that the country went almost a break and then stepped back. I think both Republicans and Democrats realized that this thing got too hot to handle. Because it became not only a national cause, it became an international cause celebrity. And the fact that we have a very heavy footprint in the Muslim world, and the perception of the Muslim world, which I had to deal with as well. And I was monitoring.
Literally in the Middle East.
When all this happened.
It began before I left, and it peaked while I was in the Gulf. And after I returned, but I also knew from friends of mine how it was covered, and because my work is to bridge. I mean, if I was just concerned about perceptions in America, it would have been a much easier process. But I had to worry about the perceptions in the Arab and Muslim world as well, because if I did a wrong action, the sense that Islam is under attack, could have given a very, very false impression to people in the Muslim world. But I know that from my conversations with a number of heads of governments who shared with me the fact that they spoke to the U.S. government at the highest levels about this subject and expressing their concern, especially when we were held hostage by Sarah Palin and Terry Jones, when the Quran said, we're suggesting, well, maybe we should, he will agree to not fully agree to move. And this whole put us into a hostage dynamic. It made it very, very complicated.
Can you speak very, very briefly about the status
of the project? Are you even in
Well,
a position to do so?
Well, it's still a work in progress. There's still things that, are undetermined yet. The developers focus on the real estate, but my focus from